Welcome, everyone. If you've tuned in on Twitch, you already hear us talking about our mid-May madness. I'm Frank, and I'm joined by John, Matt, James, and Al. And we're going to be talking about our favorite arcade memories. It's been a while. I don't know if you could tell. Oh, and we also have a baby.
Yes.
We've commandeered a baby for this.
I mean, he doesn't have any opinions on arcades yet, but I mean, assumably he will one day.
Right, well, he's not here for the arcades. He's just the non-pro baby.
The studio mascot
adopted him, and he's being raised by the non-productive crew at this point. He's the non-pro baby.
I feel bad for any baby raised by us. Yeah, thanks, Matt.
No, I'm all
in
on this. I am all in on this. Us joint raising a baby we found. Let's do this.
Okay, I have a resume for being a godfather if you want to see it.
He does. I've actually seen this resume. It is not good. John is not well equipped, even for the most minor of responsibilities. But we're not here to talk about responsibilities. We're not here about talking about all the crushingness that's happening in the world today. We're taking a brief break, mental health check-in, and we're going to talk about a contest we had been doing kind of randomly in the middle of May, deciding we're going to talk about our favorite arcade games. Specifically, the first controversy was that we had to narrow down gaming a lot. Because the original, do you remember how this got originally pitched? For like best video games, and then like the first 30 suggestions were console games from a few years ago.
Really?
No, yeah, there was a lot of console games being suggested. The problem is that's like sort of doing a contest about best movie.
Oh yeah.
You wouldn't get anywhere. So we had to narrow it down to make best arcade games. And then we had to narrow it down even further and eliminate things like skee ball and pinball for the most part. Those are all moving on to the Discord. We're focusing on best arcade video games. And I'm pretty shocked about what got knocked out in the first round. What is the biggest upset, do you think, from the first round of our competition?
I really thought King of Fighters would make it.
Yeah.
I knew King of Fighters was going to be out. I just knew it because it came so late in the announcement round, and there were so many other fighting games that it was up against. I didn't think it was going to make it.
You know what? I'll say disappointed, but not surprised.
Yeah, that's how I'm at. I'm completely not surprised, but I am disappointed at cough lack of taste of people.
What is so good about that game, and why do we think it got knocked out in the first round?
Wait, who did it lose to?
Turtles in Time.
I mean,
well, Turtles in Time is a classic, and King of Fighters is it's one of those things where it's popular in the genre, but if you're not in the genre, you don't know it. I think it's like a big fish, little pond thing.
Wow. John is a lot more generous than I was. I was going to say it lost due to it's Turtles in Time is a very basic kind of choice. It's a very safe choice. It's like, oh yeah, I remember Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Oh yeah, I remember I had this arcade game. So that's why I think it. That's why a big reason why I think it lost. But like in terms of why it should have won in terms of King of Fighters, I mean, I mentioned this in the fan club, but it's very significant beyond just like the genre of fighting games, just like the international appeal, like outside of Japan. Like I mentioned, how it's a huge part of Central and South American video game culture, and you could have probably a whole entire discussion about why KOF and SNK games are big down there.
Now that you mentioned it, yeah, it is. There, when I watch the tournaments, there is a big South, like Colombia, Rio. Yeah, they're really big into, and they have really good players.
Yeah, oh yeah, they're like their strongest competitors. I think even more than Japan at this point. And I mean, just the fact that like you wouldn't have a lot of stuff in fighting games today if it wasn't King of Fighters. Like I don't think you would have like Marvel versus Capcom if King of Fighters didn't do 3v3 originally. And probably like things like But just like things like the character designs, like you mentioned this, John, like how like SNK character designs are just so iconic, and definitely an inspiration for a lot of things.
Here's my thing. At the risk of us, we don't want to come off saying filthy casuals.
Yeah,
Filthy
okay.
casuals are the ones that vote. But
I'll say it.
okay, John will definitely say it. But like, I looked back into the round in that game. It's game 13, and actually, you know what? There aren't a lot of impassioned arguments for Turtles in Time. I think maybe Dave got the closest by actually, picture of the cabinet in his break room, and clearly we all have like some fond memories of it. But it's interesting. I think this is one of those ones where just where it fell in the competition, and like the fact that Turtles in Time, for some reason, came out before in our competition before Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and I do think there's a little bit of confusion on people on which game they were voting for. And certainly there was an idea of like, well, we don't want to, we want the Turtles game that I played so fondly come forward. But it's not until well later that the Turtles game actually gets some impassioned arguments, and that's for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, not for Turtles in Time. Whatever. This is a friendly competition, but people were wrong.
You.
We're wrong.
I'm disappointed. Matt is, I think, like offended, like deeply, like to his core. Like, how dare you? Like, hand on fucking Turtles offended.
Matt can be offended, but I'm one of those filthy casuals. I just don't have a huge relationship with the King of Fighters franchise. And I do have a big relationship with Turtles in Time specifically. Not maybe the earlier TMNT game, but, just makes sense to me.
I think Turtles in Time is the best side-scrolling beat-em-up of all time.
Al, you haven't said anything in a while. What game from our first round did you think it was devastating or surprising that got into the competition at all, or surprising it left?
Most of this kind of went the way I was expecting. A couple of them were kind of weird, but the Mario Brothers versus Dig Dug, I didn't expect Mario Brothers to go. Like, I expected the name of Mario to like carry enough weight to at least bring it to the next round, or at least beat Dig Dug. But
Yeah.
Dig Dug has been like this dark horse that that is just like going again and again, and now it's up against the Donkey Kong, and like
if it takes out Donkey Kong, it just took out the whole. It just takes out Mario altogether, right?
It takes out Nintendo arcade games. Yeah, I certainly didn't expect him to beat Centipede, but Dig Dug did that too. They're a dark horse. Don't count them out.
The Cinderella story.
Are there any other Nintendo games still in this? Hold on a minute. I'm going to do a quick look.
Yeah, Donkey Kong. I think that's it. Oh, no, wait. Is there anything else?
Punch-Out still in? I thought Punch-Out was still in.
Yeah, Punch-Out's in there.
Right.
And Punch-Out's great.
Punch-Out's great, but I don't know if it's going to beat Galaga, to be perfectly honest.
Punch-Out's just so unique, right? Like, what a unique experience playing Punch-Out I feel like we're not supposed to be talking about this round yet, but, the two screens, the innovation, like, it feels like Nintendo in an arcade cabinet. You know what I mean? And maybe that's why Punch-Out is having such a long-lasting thing, is Nintendo's got this history of innovation and being interesting with their games. And, like, Punch-Out not only does that, with the game and the gameplay, but with the arcade cabinet and its style.
Mm.
So for me, I think the Venom for Dragon's Lair was my favorite moment. Because we're gonna transition into like arcade conversations, I think, in a second. But everybody remembered and hated Dragon's Lair, and I honestly, that first part remembered is what I thought wasn't gonna happen. I didn't think anybody was gonna remember the game, but everybody has this kind of like this cheap, cheating piece of crap game doesn't deserve to make it, and I love that.
I'm honestly surprised people remembered Dragon's Lair. But it was incredibly. You mentioned like it was delicious salt. Really, just like seeing all because like that definitely is something I agreed with because Dragon's Lair was completely unfair by design.
Dragon's Lair looks beautiful, and I think that's why it's memorable. But it's awful to play. It's not fun.
No, it's not. Not at all. Not in any way.
Yeah, but
I've wasted so much money on that game just because. Like it's truly a waste. Even if I only put in a couple of dollars, there's no point. I might as well just hand my money over to the arcade and walk away. we'll use this as a segue to actually get talking about arcades themselves, because that's what part of this is. It's a celebration of a time gone by that, by maybe for valid reasons, there aren't as many arcades anymore. Many of them are kind of niche, although that makes them a lot cooler, in my opinion. But there was definitely a moment in time arcades existed, and it doesn't exist right now. So I'll share one of my fond memories. It's about Dragon's Lair, or about the arcade where I first played Dragon's Lair. I think it was called, the arcade was the Plaza Game Room. It was on Route 46 in probably Little Falls, New Jersey, or it could have been Totowa or Wayne. It's like that. There was a big stretch of malls. It used to be by a store called Bradley's, which went out of business a long time ago, was replaced with Caldor, which went out of business a long time ago. I think now it's a Kohl's or something. I don't know why I remember that. It's now the place the arcade used to be is, I think, now a GameStop. So at least the spirit is still there. But man, that place was the ultimate in 80s arcade. Dark walls, neon colors, with like a neon racing strip, I think. Or basketball games, like I think in the foreground, there was this vending machine that looked like a chicken. It was a chicken that would lay an egg.
Oh, that's cool.
I still remember it. And there was, along the right-hand side, there was a Rampage machine. Rampage was my go-to. It was the only one that I can consistently play amazingly at. And behind that, for time, it didn't last very long. On the right side wall, there was a bunch of pinball machines, but like around that area was Dragon's Lair. And no one could explain to me how to play this game. The tutorial said like there's a light and you move the joystick when you see the light. I never even saw the light. I have no idea whether this whole thing was just a scam. I would spend hours in that arcade, either like sitting at Rampage or maybe a few other games that I was like great at, trying out The Simpsons, Turtles in Time, Dragon's Lair, the pinball machines, or all the way in the back where Paperboy for some reason was right by the party room where they would have birthday parties for lucky little kids. I never got one. That was my memory. That's my thing in arcades. It was a babysitter. How people say TV is a babysitter, or people use TV as babysitters. That's definitely true for 80s kids. But also, if you had to be like a remote babysitter, you were left off in the local arcade with like a handful of quarters and say, you better let it last because you're not getting more.
It's weird what you could get away with at the time, which was just leaving your kid off somewhere and like they're fine. Like they'll be exactly where I left them when I come back.
I was going to say arcades for me were a big part of my shore experience. Mm-hmm. So my family would travel down the shore every summer. She's very excited about it. They traveled down the shore every summer, and we didn't have.
We have a solution for our comedy show. We need audience interaction. We just have the non-pro baby in the background. As long as we're like just a rattle or something, and as a performer, I feel better with the reaction sounds from non-pro baby.
But yeah, so we would go down the shore, and there weren't like any arcades like near me in the hometown, right? Like maybe there were a couple of pinball machines in bars or something, but I couldn't go there. So down the shore was it until like DDR machines became popular and stuff started popping up in malls, and very quickly as a kid, I realized that like getting tickets wasn't a very effective way to spend my arcade money. I'd rather get it, not get anything and play a game, get some sort of, emotional achievement out of it. And that's when I started playing like arcade games, Turtles in Time, The Simpsons, the ones that we find very memorable.
Yeah, good observation. Yeah.
My arcade experience is very similar to James in that it is exactly like going down the shore to Fantasy Island or other parks like that and just hanging out in the arcades. And like I have vivid memories of The Simpsons being the first arcade game I ever beat as a child. And rest in peace, Simpsons. It was defeated by Mortal Kombat, but deservedly so. So I'm not mad about it. But like, man, that very similar experience of just like, but I remember being a kid and being like, why can't I win tickets for playing these games? Why do I have to play the skee ball? Like,
I do also remember having that
Yeah,
thought.
that was
like,
my exact
why can't
same
I get
thought as
tickets
well.
for being good at this?
Wow, all these pent up. All right. No, I mean, I think as soon as you got your first eraser for like 3 weeks worth of work, you didn't care about tickets anymore. There was the joy of beating a game or beating someone else. Let's talk about fighting games real quick.
Oh my god! Ooh,
Yeah.
John,
ooh.
Matt. Yeah.
I was gonna say that like segues nicely into my arcade memories. Like, yes, like for me again, it was down the shore, specifically Wildwood Crest, the boardwalks there, and also I guess Wildwood proper. But my most distinct memory was playing Marvel vs. Capcom, the original one. And then some older person, like around like a maybe like a teenager, like around an older teenager, came up and with his friends, and they decided to play me. Because I was thinking, okay, yeah, just like an easy win, and I ended up beating that kid like 2 or 3 times in a row, and like the older kids like friends were just like having a ball, just laughing at him, and it felt so good. Just pretty much embarrassing this teenager as like as like a 10-year-old.
We all enjoy embarrassing teenagers, let's admit it. And honestly, that's just beautiful. That's just like that's the kind of crushing defeat you could deliver to a foe. It's just chef's kiss. Mwah.
Yeah, I don't know. None of you, except for Frank, have seen me in arcade, but arcades bring out the worst in me. Because I am a very, very, very bad loser. And I am not the best fighting game player, which is a bad combination.
oh no.
Because, like, it's still, like, I went to, there's places in the city that have, like, arcade nights where people will bring a bunch of consoles and play fighting games in tournaments. That's pretty much where the culture is right now. And I went to one in December, and this guy just kept beating me easily on Street Fighter V because I never played Street Fighter V. So he kept doing this one thing I didn't know how to get around, and the rage of like 2 decades of not playing in an arcade came back, and I really wanted to punch him. And it's the only time not the only time, but like, pretty much the only time I ever feel violent is in an arcade.
It really is impressive. He gets like, and then like the quarters start to stack up because you put your quarter down to say you got next, and no one is happy. Everyone's just very mad about doing this. It's the most fun to be with a friend who is not doing well but cares way too much about it.
I have 2 arcade stories.
Go for it.
The one was, I guess, Matt, it might, I wonder if it was you. I was at the Menlo Park arcade, and I think it may have been Capcom versus SNK 2. And there was this kid, he was like, I forgot how old I was. I was like either a teenager or maybe my early 20s, probably a teenager. And there was this kid was on the game, and he was beating everybody. He literally had like a 30-game streak going because he was using Vega, and nobody could beat him. And he was finishing everybody with the super. Everybody with the super. So the older Asian kids, and like, not to get racial, but the Asian kids really don't like losing.
No.
They would like, they couldn't beat him, and they were getting mad. Like the older kids were getting, and I really, really thought they were going to find him in a parking lot. Like I was by like the 30th win, I was like genuinely concerned for this kid because Just the way they were looking at him was like, well, kid, maybe you should take one for the team. Maybe you should take a dive.
It's one of those movies. It's like Raging Bull, but for arcades.
Yeah, and like the mob guys were losing money and they were getting angry. I was like, kid, I really was gonna be like, kid, maybe you should, I think you've proven your point. And one night I had a streak like that going, and it was on Alpha 3, and I was using Blanca, and I don't know, like, because I can't do combos, but I'm good at knowing how to fight people.
Yeah.
So I had like a 30 gate, because like the madder people got, the more they kept using Ken and Ryu suck against Blanca. So the madder people got, the more I won.
Hell yeah.
And again, it was those same faces. Eventually I lost because I got bored and my attention drifted because I kept winning so much.
It just became too easy. So I'm not gonna start saying I don't want to oversell it. I do think you can learn something for being in an arcade and like having these experiences of either losing and having your ass handed to you, or just some confidence in actually being able to prove your own. I think there's a little bit of like socializing that happens that we kind of miss out on. But I won't forget the time, and I'm not good at fighting games. Like I was somehow magically in the zone. I think I was playing Tekken 3. Something ridiculous, and I could not be beat, but to the point where like I was pretty certain I was being like punked or something, like that my controllers weren't actually doing anything, because I didn't know really anything. I wasn't like I hadn't prepared any particular character. It didn't matter which character I picked up and played. Just no one could put a dent in me, and it was just one of those days, never replicated. Just a moment where I just could not be touched by anyone. Everybody was like, "Oh yeah, you're really good at this. You must have been practicing." And I'm like, "I'm pretty sure my controller's set to automatic or something. I am controlling the PC character." But yeah, those are great moments. One thing I do want to share, I think, to be fair, my earliest arcade moment, and I don't know if this is going to be like, I don't know how relatable this is. My dad ran a deli convenience store in Paterson, downtown Paterson, New Jersey. Like he had pretty much everything in the store. It was like there was a deli there, but it was also a grocery store. It was basically a bodega, but it was like bigger than that, to give you the best idea of what this place was like. Along the side, there was room for like 3 or 4 arcade machines, and they would change over time. Like, Pac-Man was definitely the machine that was there probably the longest. That's the thing. Like my mother would like park on it. My older sisters would do it. My father would. Everybody would love it. But the thing that was incredible to me, and it doesn't fit in my brain. Street Fighter, and it was the original Street Fighter. When that came out, it was in there, and my father, who is not a person you would ever picture playing a video game, would sit there and just beat up all the neighborhood kids walking by. Because he had been there like the whole day, and I remember the guy who ran the vending machine for us came and would take the change out every day or week or whatever it was. Would open up the door, and for those of you who've never seen the inside of an arcade machine, there's like a little like the place where the change goes in. There's a little like a paperclip like wire, and it like triggers, and if you hit that paperclip down, it counts as a credit. But literally, he would take the money out. And I'm the little kid who's the owner's son. He'd whack that little wire 40, 50 times in like 100 credits and say, "All right, enjoy." And you could sit there and play. And my father would sit at the Street Fighter machine instead of running his business, throwing fireballs at people. And every time he did it, people were like, "What just happened?" It was like very early, just released. No one knew what the hell this was supposed to be. And I remember that was like the most impressed, but I have no documentation. Even my father doesn't remember it. They're like, "Yeah, Pac-Man." I'm like, "No, the other game." He's like, "Pac-Man?" No, there was another game.
Yeah, no, that's very because that's where I first started playing Street Fighter was in a pizza place in Norway. And it was one of those like super like I think you're all too young for well maybe like when it like the weird modified Street Fighter games where
Street
like
Fighter.
you could throw fireballs.
Were you talking
Huh?
about Rainbow Edition?
I don't know what it was called, but it was like you could throw fireballs in the air and you could jump off the
Oh
top
my
of the
God.
screen and come back up the bottom. Like there was lots of different versions, but they were all just really weird and had weird game setups. You could literally fill the screen with fireballs. You could throw them unlimited. You could float. You could teleport. Like all sorts of weird stuff.
Yep. Yeah, my uncle ran like a billiards room back like years ago. And he had had some arcade machines, and one of them was called Street Fighter 2 Rainbow Edition. And it was exactly what you talked about. Like he could like Ryu could like throw fireballs, but like he shot out like 3 at once. And like Blanca, he could do like his electric attack, but in the middle of the air, and he could go across the screen like while doing it. And for the longest time, I thought it was something that my mind made up. I thought it was like just like a figment of imagination, some kind of like false memory of a Street Fighter game being able to do that. But then like some like years later, I saw on the internet somebody talking about Street Fighter 2 Rainbow Edition, and like just describing the exact stuff that I recalled. I was like, holy crap, it did exist. Like it was real.
And they were all different. I don't know how they were all like. I don't know who was making
so many different like hacks or whatever. Kind of like how like Mugen now, like there's so many different like hacks of like different arcade games and stuff that like and all like different characters. So yeah, it's probably just like basically like modders basically just having a go at like the code or whatever.
And you can like just say, and nobody knew what they were actually saying because nobody knew. There was no internet and nobody spoke Japanese, so you were just saying what you approximated it to think. And like
early, well-intentioned racism. Yeah. I'm glad there wasn't social media back then because I was like, no, this is fine, right? No, I'm
like, oh, he's saying tiger. We will all say hyper, hyper, and all you bitch.
I forgot about that.
We were just saying whatever our like Rorschach minds connected with.
Oh my god, I forgot about that. Oh, you meant that's what. Oh my god. But no, what Matt was talking about is definitely true. There's like half remembered things that you're like, no, this thing, don't you remember? And nobody else does. And it was in the days before the internet. You had no way of confirming. Just lived your life, hoped other people experienced it, that maybe your friends, and then afterwards maybe you would find somebody who knows what you're saying.
I mean, that's why I never call Ryu when I know it's supposed to be Ryu, but for years of my life we all said Ryu, and I can't make my mouth call him Ryu.
So we have our Sweet 16. I'm going to go through it real quick right now. And we actually haven't even begun the competition for Sweet 16. It's going to start after this podcast. Our Sweet 16 and the fights that are going to happen. Street Fighter 2 Turbo versus Turtles in Time.
Ooh.
There are no more Turtle games. It's only Turtles in Time. I can't imagine Street Fighter losing, but like, especially because it's not like this isn't it represents a Street Fighter franchise, but this is the only one we've really said by name which Street Fighter we're talking about. I think this is a tough one, but I think we're going to see the end of the Konami games maybe this round.
Those beat 'em ups, my thing is that I don't know how many casual people played fighting games versus beat 'em ups. Because I think that's what it's going to come down to. How much nostalgia do you have for the Street Fighter franchise versus like Turtles in Time? Because anybody could pick up Turtles in Time and kind of go through that with enough time and enough quarters. You like Street Fighter 2, you had to get good at it, and not everyone wanted to get good at it.
You actually kind of had to get good at Turtles in Time too, because it was a trick. Like you had to get good at figuring out how to throw foot soldiers.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever figured that out very well.
But there's not a lot of beat 'em ups left. We'll get to one of the other ones later. But I feel like this has always been the king of beat 'em ups for a long time, and Street Fighter is the king of fighters. Damn it, not what I meant, but you get what I mean.
I think it's difficult too. Something that throwing me off here, I guess, is originally I would have said that the existence of it on consoles and its longevity in life there should mean something. But with the early exit of Mario Brothers, I wonder if that's if the audience is really taking it into account. No, what is my experience with this in the arcades? And then at that point, it might just be that Turtles in Time, because it was a property that was more widely recognized, was in more arcades, so more people played it.
And I think and both of them have home console ports to talk of, So
we have about 15 minutes and 15 more to go through. Let's go.
Got it.
Marvel versus Capcom franchise, the entire franchise. We're not specific. We're not saying anyone that may or may not be the greatest. And the Mortal Kombat franchise. I think this is incredibly difficult because I love the Marvel vs. Capcom games. Like Mortal Kombat is iconic as a video game and nothing else.
I'm gonna say Marvel vs. Capcom, just for the fact that I think a lot of people had more fun playing Marvel vs. Capcom than Mortal Kombat. Like Mortal Kombat in the arcade was very in the arcade Mortal Kombat games. Once you get past the idea of it's bloody and violent, it wasn't really exactly that much fun to play. But Marvel vs. Capcom, it's so it was definitely a lot more fun to play, and also it's just very iconic for arcades when you have the yiped speech and all the different various memes that come out of Marvel vs. Capcom. And I think I'm gonna say it's gonna be close, but it'll be MVC.
Honestly, I think I as an adult, I had more fun with Marvel vs. Capcom. Looking back, at the time, Mortal Kombat was everything. I told you guys, I left the Mortal Kombat movie, and my friends and I went and bought the cassette. That is sad.
The soundtrack, pretty much was a watershed moment in my music listening because I had never. That soundtrack opened me up to so much music I never would have listened to before, like goth metal or whatever. I don't even know, Typo Negative shit like that. I never would.
Now we're moving on. The House of the Dead.
Okay.
This is Time Crisis franchise. We couldn't have planned this better.
Oh.
House of the Dead versus Time Crisis. That's rough. I actually like the helicopter game they made, but you know what? I think Time Crisis is the better shooter.
I can't disagree harder.
I totally get arguing the other way.
Yeah, I think I fall House of the Dead here.
I'm gonna join with John and say Time Crisis. I'd say that, and I recall seeing a lot more Time Crisis machines growing up than House of the Dead machines.
It's hard. I like them both. I really don't. I had a blast playing both of them. So
I think I really don't want to keep doing this, but I do think House of the Dead for the casuals, it's much more you can get into this. You could sit down on a date and play this game, and it would be fun. Crisis, you had to interact. You had to dodge.
Yeah,
I think that makes it more interesting. I don't know. This is, I think, more difficult than it seems.
Yeah, it is hard because they're both very well done games, and it comes down to I think the flavor. Which one do you like better? And I think that's really what it comes down to.
Yeah. All right. Next is Galaga and Punch-Out. I think Galaga is one of the few that style of game that survived. I kind of wish we had put all of those in one category just to see the best of that. But that's not how seating worked, and we don't really get paid to do this, so who cares? Yeah, Galaga. It's better than, in my opinion, better than Space Invaders, better than Centipede. I think it's more I'll give you this. Yeah, it's I think our only boxing game is Punch Out, but like, how is that? I don't know. It's not much different than a fighting game where you're only playing a computer opponent. I'm iffy, but I think Nintendo's leaving. I think Nintendo might be leaving this round.
Yeah.
I'm with you on this, Frank, because like I too would say Galaga is better than Space Invaders. So, like, you know, I love Galaga. I think it's amazing.
All right, we're back on the classics. Top of the list: Pac-Man, all the Pac-Man, Miss Pac-Man, Pac-Man versus Space Invaders. I don't think anything. I think if you're a nostalgia person and you're only picking the thing that's most playable, I think Pac-Man edges out Space Invaders, right?
I like all of these games, like Space Invaders and Galaga, and Galaga were really hard for me. There was a time when I was really good at Pac-Man. I think Pac-Man just like really hypnotizes people. So I think that's probably the more popular one.
Yeah, and I think there's an aspect of some of these other games where they kind of blend together because they all got the space theme, right?
Yeah.
Someone confusing Space Invaders and Galaga and maybe even Centipede to a certain extent. But Pac-Man is Pac-Man. It's just weird. Next on our list is Dig Dug and Donkey Kong. This is going to be incredible. If Dig Dug beats Donkey Kong, I don't know if it's stoppable.
I feel bad because I have absolutely no connection to Dig Dug at all. I think I've played it like once on like someone's table, like cabinet, like coffee table cabinet. Like I have no interest in Dig Dug, and like obviously Donkey Kong I played a bajillion times. So I don't know. I mean, I'd go Donkey Kong, but does someone defend Dig Dug to me?
It's fun. It is. I don't know. I wouldn't. I'm kind of surprised it got as far as it did. So I'm going to continue to be surprised if it pushes past. But
Cinderella
Bomberman.
Cinderella story. If it gets to the final four, it'll lose. It's not going to win.
Dig Dug, you don't think?
Dig Dug, no.
I don't know, man. Like I think it has a chance. I think you underestimate Dig Dug. I think you do.
I think that if it makes it to the final four, and like Galaga and Punch Out, either of those do, there's a type of voter who's only going to be picking the thing that was in a cabinet in the early '80s, and that's what they're going to pick on.
Yep.
All right, X-Men and Bomberman. I'm surprised Bomberman made it out. Especially against Defender, and actually Puzzle Fighter. How the hell did Bomberman make it this far? I thought I was like the only person who gave a damn.
When you told me, I was like, "What?" I was mad about Puzzle Fighter. Puzzle Fighter is the one I'm offended by, but I kind of get it because it wasn't as big as Bubble Wobble. Like I can say that, but
yeah,
it's
good. But it was up against Bomberman. It definitely was bigger than Bomberman.
Bomberman was huge. I remember that Bomberman was a thing when it was out. Like there were like tournaments and shit.
Yeah, I mean, it was like one of the first really big like multiplayer games where you get like a bunch of people playing together, like competitively, like instead of just like one-on-one. So I feel like that's definitely an appeal to it. But yeah, I'm actually kind of surprised, and I don't know if they'll be able to get past X-Men, but it's definitely a very good run.
I'm surprised it's X-Men and not Children of the Atom. I really did. I mean, I think there was a little bit of mix-up for the two X-Men games and the two Turtles games, to some extent. I mean, X-Men was good. It was good, but I really did think Children of the Atom would make it further than X-Men did.
It's the same thing with King of Fighters. Is that like fighting game people are very passionate and they're not representative of gamers. Like they're not representative of the gaming community overall. They're a
All right.
strong.
I wonder how many more chips we could put on people's shoulders.
Yeah,
Starting
really.
with casuals and then fighting game people or not gamers.
Wait, but we're not even talking about fighting games right now, are we? Like,
No,
X-Men is the beat 'em up.
yeah.
Yeah, he brought up Children of the Atom, which is probably second after Turtles in Time for the best side scroller.
We got Dungeons and Dragons, Shadows over Mysteria, which it's one of my fondest arcade memories, was pumping quarters in until I beat it. I don't know how I got rich. It was at Fun and Games, which I think Matt brought up. Fun and Games.
You mean sports and games?
Sports and games. You're right.
Yeah.
And Dance Dance Revolution, which I tip my hat to it for being such a unique game that I never played.
I think this is DDR's to take, especially if you were my generation in middle school or high school. DDR was all the rage.
When arcades hit the malls, right? So let's say grade school was my down the shore arcades, but high school was the malls, and there was a DDR machine in every mall, and for hours and hours and hours, and you would jump on and off with other people, and you'd make new friends, and I don't know. It was just a unique experience. I've never really experienced playing like any other just regular arcade game, you know?
Yeah, that would bring together a crowd, like an actual a dance competition. People would gather together and just watch people going at it.
People hooting and hollering and getting excited, all for a video game, because you could watch it. You could really watch it as compared to these other games. You'd only get 4 or 5 people around a cabinet, right? But DDR, because the people had to be spaced out, because you were watching the people jumping around and doing things, everybody could see it.
Yeah, I mean, I understand from an academic standpoint. I can't honestly, if I had a home machine, I would not want. I don't know. I get it. I totally get it. I get it, but it's not my thing. I can't see anything standing in its way, at least in this division, and possibly even out of it. I don't know if it. Yeah, I think if it's up against Space Invaders, Pac-Man, Dig Dug, or Donkey Kong, it will have some kind of competition. But I don't think I don't think D&D is going to put up that competition. I don't think X-Men or Bomberman is. We'll see. This has been fun. I like reminiscing about good old days. Thanks, guys. This has been swell. So, any last thoughts before we sign off? Anybody want to share anything about arcades in general?
No, we're not done yet. There's more to come.
Yeah,
there's more to come. We got another live show coming up on Thursday with comedian Calvin Cato, which is going to be awesome. We're also going to talk a little bit more about the Discord only competition we're doing for pinball machines and more modern arcade machines, which is, I think, Luigi's Mansions to lose, to be honest. Such a good game. Follow, subscribe.
I've never seen a Luigi's Mansion cabinet, but okay.
Every Dave and Buster, you and your wife have to get off your pedestal about this. Go out as soon as they reopen. Non-pro baby. Bring a non-pro baby. There's probably going to be more than one. All right. Follow, subscribe, do all that stuff. Thank you all, patrons, for being patrons. And we love you. Stay safe and strong.
Good night, everybody.
This has been a non-productive media presentation. Executive producer Frank Hablawi. This program and many others like it on the Non-Productive Network is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives license. Please share it, but ask before trying to change it or sell it. For more information, visit non-productive.com.